I mean, I didn't even know the term CRT until I stumbled upon the Center for Biblical Unity 15 months ago through Natasha Crane's blog post that went viral. So in Christian higher education, it's been positioned as student development originally, I would think, and discussed in terms like intercultural programming, community support, campus unity efforts. And that's where it really has been until recently, is just creating a good community setting for our students who live here and interact here in this community.
So do you think that in the beginning, there was kind of a thought of maybe like a good type of diversity of how can we engage in recruiting more international students? How can we help students that come from different cultural backgrounds to feel more comfortable? Like maybe in the beginning, that's what it was like. Because I talked to a former provost at a top 5 Christian university a while back, and he said that in his experience, that was kind of how it started. I'm wondering if that kind of aligns with your experience as well.
Absolutely, yes. A big push in the early 2000s on international students, and then you get students here who live in different countries, and you have to support them. You're not just supporting them during school hours, but you are their only place to go on a break weekend or Thanksgiving weekend. You're their community support. You're the one who needs to go there when they're hospitalized. And then the desire to grow. I think institutions have a mission to serve people and to serve students who may not otherwise be served. That's part of the mission of Christian higher education. And so diversity analyses of the current student population told them that we have these different kinds of students, focus groups with those students. How do we attract more diversity in the student population? Not solely because we want to grow as an institution, but because it's good for us as an institution. It's good for us to have different students learning together. And I just want to emphasize that the leaders' hearts were in the right place with that. The mission centrality of their institutions to serve students who need a higher education in a Christian environment.
So this diversity analysis of student populations back in the early 2000s, that would have been like, how do we attract, I'm imagining that involves, how do we attract, more people from different demographics than we're attracting right now? How do we broaden our student base? How do we broaden even international students and attract them? So that's a good thing. I mean, we want to make Christian higher ed available to as many Christians as possible. And so I'm thinking that those kinds of adjustments would have been about enrollment growth, and that sort of a thing, which in and of itself, I would think like, that's not a bad thing. That's almost like being a good missionary.
Yes. This is what the institutions are created to do, is to create people who will go change the world. And so giving people who are going to graduate and go into different areas of ministry and areas of business and be influencers for the kingdom of God. And their hearts are in the right places, they're doing the right things, and they're doing them for the right reasons. It's just that presidents and leaders didn't know what to do with the diverse populations that came to those institutions, and they needed information. And I think what happened is they started recommending resources to each other and just trying to find out, what can I do? How can I learn more about this? And so the resources that were already out there and were already published are the ones that they used, the ones that they recommended to each other, the ones that they started talking about, and the ones that therefore have shaped the culture of higher education.
So when those resources started to be shared with each other and these Christian higher ed leaders started collaborating, what kinds of resources were they sharing? Were they like just kind of looking around at the literature of what's available. Oh, we want more diversity. Here's books on diversity, not really understanding maybe at the time, like a distinctly Christian vision for diversity and how that was different than what was floating around in broader academia. I mean, help kind of paint that picture a little bit.
Yes. So, of course, in Christian higher education, our leadership is mostly white. It is mostly male. And so these are people who are thinking, I don't know what to do, and I want to be open, and I want to serve people who are not like me. And so they're looking for literature, as you said, that's been written on the topic from everything from an academic standpoint to what is purporting to be theological standpoint, and putting together lists and sharing those lists on listservs, on distribution lists. That they do that. They send out distribution lists of summer reading lists of what the chief academic officers are reading, or what they're giving their faculty to read, or what presidents are reading. And this is what shapes the conversations then going forward.
So what were some of the other strategies that were implemented by many of these Christian colleges besides sharing papers, sharing books? What else did they do to try to help with diversity?
Well, what I saw most commonly is that they hired a person for a diversity effort. This was usually called intercultural programming. It usually came out of student development. And in most cases, and lots of cases, this was to hire a recently graduated, usually African-American male, who had been significantly involved in student development leadership. And so the thought process was, he loves the institution, he understands the institution, he'll help other students connect in their activities and living situations, so they'll also love the institution like he does. Again, this is the right goal. They wanted students to connect and feel that they belonged in the institution. But these recent graduates were untrained. They were in over their heads. They had no background in, say, theology, except for some classes that they took in their bachelor's program. They had no experience in conflict resolution. And what they did is they brought their family and community perspective and definitions to the topic. It wasn't academic. They didn't have an agenda. They weren't trying to push CRT as an academic agenda. They were just describing what their culture and their experiences led them to understand and believe. And so thinking about how hard it is for us as adults and parents to engage on these topics, but these topics were thrown to, say, a 22-year-old to mitigate the emotions between people who are essentially their peers, and then a handful or even a cabinet full of 40, 50, 60-year-old white men. And I just want to take a moment to bless their young, idealistic hearts for trying to stand in the gap and do something that was just way over their head.